Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Queen Elizabeth, A Day in Her Life. I apologize if I'm a little behind in my videos. I had software issues with my video editor, and I had to get another one. And then now I'm in the process of packing up my things and moving to another apartment. So everything's been kind of like a whirlwind. But I always look forward to doing videos on royal history, and Princess Alexandra has been a very interesting story for me so far. So, in our last episode, poor Princess Alexandra had to go through a lot with her husband and his near death. And just when she thought he was well, he relapsed. Then, as they all felt he may die, he recovered. I liked learning a little about the Prince of Wales and Princess Alexandra's children, and then we learn more about them through Queen Victoria and Lady Geraldine. So let's see what's going on today. To the princess, members of the family and also domestic servants were like members of her own family. In 1874, she was grieving over the loss of the prince's equerry, Major Grey. In one of the few letters to her husband that escaped destruction, she describes how she visited the dying man, who had begged to see her once more. I promise I won't speak. I only want to hold her hand, and how she waited for an hour after hour in an adjoining room until at last she was told he was dead. I was ashamed that I could no longer control myself and sobbed aloud. She ends her letter with heartfelt exclamation, "Thank God over and over again that you were spared to me." Queen Victoria wrote to the Princess Consort after Major Grey's death, "Dear sweet Alex looked so distressed and shaken by all the heart-rending scenes that they had witnessed. She is so simple, so good, so truly pious, and so full of sympathy for others." When her maid, Mrs. Louisa Jones, lay dying, writing afterwards, "My poor, dear Louisa, she died in my arms." Nearest and dearest of all the members of the household were the two who first joined the service of the Prince and Princess in the early 70s. Digton Probyn, a dashing young officer who had won the Victoria Cross during the Indian Mutiny, was appointed equerry to the prince in 1872. A year later, Sir William Knowley's daughter, Charlotte, became the princess woman of the bedchamber. These two were to be her faithful friends and servants for life. Digton Probyn openly proclaimed his worship of the Blessed Lady, the name by which he always referred to as the princess, and served her with an unselfish devotion which could give no cause for scandal. After his wife's death, he was always believed to be on the verge of matrimony with Charlotte Knollys, who was deeply attached to him. One Christmas, he gave her an unusual present in the shape of a bathroom fitted for her at Sandringham, with mirrors all around the walls so that she could see herself from every angle, an idea which greatly delighted Charlotte, who was an exquisitely ugly woman. Digton Probyn had an odd taste in bathrooms. His own, which still survives at Sandringham, is equipped with 3 basins labeled head and face only, hands, and then lastly teeth. Digton Probyn was a charming, simple character who agreed admirably with everyone. Not so Charlotte Knollys. She was the bugbear of the officials, such as the captain of the royal yacht, and the royal family referred to her somewhat ruefully as the inevitable Charlotte. She had an ever-growing influence over the princess, to whom she became quite indispensable, and she gave herself entirely to the princess's service, seldom taking as much as a day's holiday. The princess repaid her with equal devotion and nursed her through several illnesses. In 1877, for instance, when Charlotte fell ill of typhoid at Abergeldy, the princess stayed on to nurse her at great inconvenience, both to herself and to the prince, refusing to go south until her patient was fit enough to travel. The prince's illnesses had marked a turning point in the relations between the queen and the princess. Their shared anxiety had brought the two together as never before. From now onwards, the queen had little but good to say of her daughter-in-law. On the 10th of March, 1873, she noted in her journey that it was the anniversary of the prince's wedding, a day which I am ever thankful, for it gave me such a dear sweet daughter as darling Alex. She was to make some such comment almost every year, either on the wedding anniversary or on the prince's birthday. Apart from the disputes which inevitably arose whenever the princess wished to take her children to Denmark, the only serious difference between them concerned church going. The queen began by complaining that her son and daughter-in-law were too irregular in their attendance. In later years, this complaint could never have been made against either of them. The prince's young niece, Princess Alice, was considerably surprised by her piece of advice her uncle gave her on marriage. Wherever you may be, always remember to go to church on Sunday. Now they duly promised to reform, a reformation which took unwelcome shape of attendance at the highest of all high churches, All Saints Margaret Street. Not surprisingly, the queen was horrified, and, as so often, she sought the help and advice of Dean Wellesley. He pointed out that he believed the real cause of the trouble to be the princess's deafness, which made the dull, inaudible service of the chapel royal a real penance to her, not hearing, and is wearied beyond anything by the service there. The dean suggested some Protestant church in London, where the Princess of Wales could hear and ought to be found for her, and seats be found there. In the end, the princess compromised by attending the chapel royal with her husband on Sunday morning, and then go to the evensong and an occasional weekday service at All Saints with Charlotte Knollys. Although careful not to obstrude her views, the princess remained very much of the high church school, and in 1884 she even went so far as to attend that newfangled service, the 3-hour devotion on Good Friday, although she confessed to finding it rather too much of a good thing. All Saints was famous for its music, and that was the part of an attraction for the princess, who didn't allow her deafness to interfere with her musical interests. Music was a great feature of life at Sandringham, where guests might be expected to play duets with the princess, or even struggle with a Schumann concerto arranged for 2 pianos. The pace was set was terrific, wrote Lady Randolph Churchill, and I was rather glad that there was no audience. Although the princess was conservative, her musical taste was more serious than might have been expected. In the 70s, the revival of the interest in Bach had barely reached England. She, however, attended and much appreciated the performance of his works, given at St. Anne's Church, Soho, being present at the Christmas oratorio as early as 1873. She was much interested in the London Back Choir, which counted Gladstone among its first members, and she helped to find a suitable hall for its concerts. Both the prince and princess actively supported Lady de Grey's efforts to revive opera at Covent Gardens, and the princess admired Wagner, while her husband preferred Offenbach. In spite of all this concern with musical matters, it must be admitted that the princess's interest in music was neither well informed nor was it highbrow. The princess wasn't an intellectual. Lady Cavendish wrote that neither the Prince of Wales nor the darling princess ever cared to open a book. When other people opened a book in her presence, the results could be surprising. We're talking about Princess Alexandra. At her first meeting with Tennyson, she politely asked him to read about the famous Ode of Welcome, which he had written for her wedding. Halfway, though, the situation struck them both as unbearably funny. The book fell on the floor, and the princess and poet went into fits of uncontrollable laughter. The prince and princess had a sense of fun. They liked practical jokes and rough-and-tumble horseplay. In their letters, she and her son, Prince George, will recall with sentimental pleasure the way in which they squirted each other with soda water siphons during the Christmas festivities at Sandringham. The princess could squirt and be squirted and still keep her dignity. At bedtime, the princess would have hijinks with the ladies in the corridors, and yet through it all, one had a sense of perfect womanly dignity and a certainty that one could never go an inch too far with her. She can gather up her beautiful, bright stateliness at any moment, according to Lady Frederick Cavendish. The cheerful, informal spirit was characteristic of parties at Sandringham. It was very jolly here indeed, wrote Oliver Montague's brother Victor. Very unstiff, and only a certain amount of etiquette. Very quiet and gentlemanlike altogether. He said the hostess was very jolly, though he complained that her deafness made conversation difficult. There would be sports of all kinds to entertain the guests, hunting as well as shooting, and in a very hard weather, games of ice hockey and skating on the lake. The princess enjoyed it, even with her lame leg. She loved horses, and when buying or selling one, she would consult Henry Chaplin, one of her husband's more intimate friends, and a famous judge of horseflesh. She was devoted to dogs. First she had pugs and later Japanese spaniels, and Pekingese being her favorite breeds. She also cherished parrots and they had a white cockatoo that lived permanently in the hall at Sandringham, although she admitted to feeling daunted when a friend presented her with no less than 40 of these birds. The princess always liked to be in London for the summer season. In the summer of 1873, her sister Minnie, her favorite sister, she was now titled the Grand Duchess Marie Fedornovna, and her husband, Tsarevich Alexander. His nickname in the family was Sasha. The two sisters delighted high society by their frequent appearances, where they appeared dressed alike. As like long ago in their childhood, the Grand Duchess was the livelier of the two, but the princess was more beautiful. When the London season ended, the prince and princess went off on a holiday, the one usually to some German spa and the other to the family home in Denmark. Husband and wife seldom went abroad together except on official occasions, such as their visit to Russia in 1874 to attend the wedding of Prince Alfred to the Tsar's daughter, the Grand Duchess Marie. The princess seldom went to France, and the princess in autumn had trouble avoiding going to Scotland. She was bored at Abergeldy, and the prince got distressed at the affairs at Balmoral, where John Brown reigned supreme. During the winter of 1874 to 75, the prince was busy with tentative arrangements for a visit to India that he had planned the following year. He kept these schemes a secret from his wife because he wasn't planning to take her with him. Princess Alexandra found out about it, and she wasn't very happy. She insisted on going. She said she was going to India and nobody should stop her. When reminded of her duty to her 5 children, she said the husband comes first. Her determination to go was inspired by the Egyptian trip she and the prince had taken together a few years ago. She wanted another visit to the romantic East, and India caught her imagination. Well, unfortunately, she didn't get her wish. She tried to get Disraeli to intervene, and her only real ally was Gladstone, who regretted very much that she should not go, deploring the long separation between husband and wife. In the end, the combination of the Queen and the Prince of Wales was too strong for the princess, who was forced to admit defeat. She never forgot or forgave not being able to go. She wrote to her son on its return from India more than 30 years later. A visit to that most beautiful and fairy-like country became the unfulfilled ambition of her life, a dream to which she referred over and over again. The prince was due to leave England on the 11th of October, 1875. The princess was miserable at this prospect, and just before her husband's departure, she went with him to see their old friend Dean Stanley, who noted that she was looking inexpressibly sad. When the actual moment for the parting arrived, the prince was as much upset as she was, and for 2 or 3 weeks afterwards, he appeared tremendously low and not at all up to his usual form. So I will end the video here. I like discovering just how loving Princess Alexandra was when she treated the servants like family and was at the deathbed of a few to be of comfort to them. Then we learned how fun and entertaining it was at Sandringham. The prince and princess were fun to be around, and they put their guests at ease. We also learned how the prince and princess spent their time according to the seasons. And then lastly, the princess wasn't too happy when she found out she wasn't going to be able to go with her husband to India. And she must have transported her feelings to her husband, because when the time came, he didn't appear to be too happy about going there. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you haven't subscribed, if you could do so, it would help the channel to grow, as well as giving it a thumbs up. It's all a great help. And if you haven't clicked on the notification bell, if you could do that, it lets you know when a video is posted. Importantly, I want to wish everyone a good day, and tune in again soon for another episode of Queen Elizabeth, A Day in Her Life. Thank you. Bye.